Hi everyone, this is Nicole from Birth Into Being Australia, and this is Willow from Berlin. She's been with the Birth Into Being pod for many, many years as well, and doing workshops over there in Europe. And we're online today to talk to you about the workshop that we're hosting together, along with Jessica Bleen, who couldn't be here today, in Kisleg, southern Germany, in late June, so June 27th till July 6th. We're calling it a Deep Immersion workshop because it is 10 days of profound process work. And we wanted to have this call to talk to the Birth Into Being Australia mailing lists about the workshop and about Birth Into Being in general. Now that we can have in-person workshops again, and now that we can get on an aeroplane again, even the vax-free people, which I'm extremely happy about. I was just saying to Willow that I've been on the phone to the government departments today and discovered that even as an unvaxxed traveller, I don't need to jump through any hoops anymore. I can just book my tickets and get on that plane. So I'm extremely excited about that. And glad that my paperwork to get to Germany is now greatly diminished, as well as my costs in returning home and not needing to quarantine anymore. So yeah, I'm heading over to Germany at the end of June to join with Willow and Jessica and hold space for a beautiful group of people who are coming together to work on their stuff. And what that stuff may be. Now, some of you are very familiar with the Birth Into Being method. Some of you have been at my workshops or done online work with me before. Some of you have just downloaded the film and enjoyed that. The film being Birth as We Know It, which is the creation of Elena Tinetti Vladimirova, who is also the founder of the Birth Into Being method and our teacher and mentor. And so, yeah, all of you are at different places around the Birth Into Being method. So we thought we'd just have a bit of a chat about it and yeah, fill in any gaps. So yeah, we've been doing a few of these live calls and we're kind of setting it up in a Q&A style thing so that we can kind of have a starting point for where to jump in, because it's an enormous body of work. Both Willow and I have a breadth of experience, both in working with our own processes and our own stuff, and also as facilitators and holding space for other people. So yeah, let's start with Birth as We Know It. So Birth as We Know It is a film that was made over a 10-year period, and it was released in 2006. And just to spark your memory, it might have been some years since you saw the film, it is a film that was very much a kind of invitation into the conscious birth movement. Elena talks a lot there about the sort of spiritual aspects of giving birth and what birth brings to individuals giving birth, families, our culture at large, and of course the babies. And it includes some really iconic footage of babies being born in the ocean, which was in the Black Sea in Russia. And it was the very early days of water birth. So whilst the film doesn't focus on that aspect so much, it was actually the beginnings of water birth, which, as we know, is common knowledge today. It also includes the footage of Amber's orgasmic birth, which is kind of incredible because it's so, the footage is so intimate. You see her eyes kind of rolling back. She's having these rolling orgasms as she's pushing her baby out. And it's the footage that proved to the world that it was possible. And that footage was then included in the film Orgasmic Birth and many other birth films. And yeah, it's like it's undeniable what is happening there. You know, you're right there close up experiencing it with her, and it's beautiful. And Birth as We Know It also included some circumcision footage, which was shot by a nurse with a buttonhole camera. The nurse was fired for when that footage came out, and it was made obvious that she had done that. But as Elena tells the story, the footage has changed many lives. So that nurse feels like it was worth it. Elena alienated a lot of people by sharing that footage, because it was, you know, even now it's kind of radical to show, you know, the tip of somebody's penis being chopped off. But I'm a partner of a Jewish man, and I tell you, that footage was extremely helpful for us in negotiating our decision making. So yeah, and so that's the footage that you might remember and make you go, oh yeah, that film. But there's some other footage in Birth as We Know It that is really intriguing, and that's where it meets the Birth into Being workshops as they are today. And that is footage of body work happening with multiple pairs of hands on the one person. There is footage of Elena spiraling, which is also something that we use in the workshop, and we'll spiral back to that. And then there's some footage of some enactment play and workshop-y sort of processes that are kind of intriguing and interesting. So I'd love to ask you, Willow, what is that body work with numerous hands? What's going on there? I mean, of course I know, but...
Well, I try to think about it from different perspectives, because I'm somebody who loves body work, you know, and that's a big part of my life, but not everybody is. And I'm really aware that there's quite a wide range of what people are comfortable with in terms of being touched. And again, because we're looking so much in this work back in time at where our experiences had an impact on the rest of our lives.
So our early life experiences.
Our early life experiences, yeah, still impact our lives today. And touch is one of these things that, well, I consider it an essential vitamin. We know that, like, we know that human beings actually thrive when we're early, you know, right away after being born, we're touched consciously and we're held and we're made to feel safe. And the contact through our bodies is really important. And a lot of people experienced something that was really actually quite violent when they first came into the world. And I know that a lot of children also don't get very much, they don't get a lot of touch. Like, almost very, very few kids are actually massaged, like given good quality massage, and lots of hugs and closeness and cuddles. So a lot of people grew up without that. So their sort of comfort zone is not being touched, because it's pretty intense when they do get touched then, because it's they're so unused to it. But in the workshop, we are working on recoding, also being able to enjoy touch. So to upgrade our capacities for pleasure in all sorts of ways, including touch. And yeah, we are also very respectful of people's borders. So everybody is able to come into whatever level of openness and comfort that they are willing to and feel ready for with regard to touch and everything else in the workshop. But our bodies, like, there's so much passes through our bodies when we do the kind of deep emotional work that we're doing in this workshop. And a huge amount of integration happens through touch. So a lot of times after really intense work, we need to have an integration period where we relax fully. And touch is part of that providing a space and time for a person to relax deeply, feel held, feel supported. So the touch, the touch that happens in this integration period is often, it's not like massage, like going for a, laying on a massage table and getting like
Getting your knots worked out.
Trigger points. This kind of touch is more like it's really to just help the person feel relaxed and supported. Really, I think I said it already, relaxed and supported, to give the messages to the body that everything's okay and that you're in good hands. All these major supporting all these major feelings that usually come up in people's processes.
So
and to kind of bring it into every
why
cell.
multiple hands? Because I think that's what makes those images in the film so memorable. And for me also, as a participant in workshops, it's what's made those integration sessions very memorable and powerful. What do you think it is around having multiple
it's such a good
sets
question.
of hands?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think it's, my understanding is it's similar to, because at the same time as receiving touch from multiple hands, you're also going to be hearing whispers from multiple people, and you won't be able to per se fix on one voice. Like your brain's not going to be able to understand it in the normal cognitive way. So like hearing many whispers, all whispering beautiful things to you, you're also receiving these I think it has an effect on your brain. You're just not able to keep track of everything in a normal way. So there's kind of a gap that's created in normal thinking. And that allows you to be in a very special state of being. It's like being in a light state of trance, actually, very, very mild. It puts you into this place, the limbic, maybe it's the limbic system that opens up when there's all these different inputs. And that's where we want to be working, is in that space. That's where the storage of memories are, or so it's thought anyway. We are
the non-cognitive, so it's not the cortex, right?
Yeah, exactly.
You're bypassing the cortex by sort of almost overwhelming it with sensation and ideas and input.
Yeah. It's like there are lots of different techniques use this kind of methodology. Like if you ever went to a gong meditation, it's similar. You hear like instruments can produce so many different sounds at one time, so many different frequencies. And when it's done right, it puts you into a light state of trance. It opens up something like the subconscious in a really amazing way. You get access. I think it's working with the same kind of mechanism there.
I'm feeling really warm and like a pulse of oxytocin, even just thinking about it and remembering being in that state as a receiver. But then I've so many times been a giver as well. And that also feels amazing. And yeah. And I guess
think you hit on something. I think you hit on something there with the oxytocin.
Absolutely.
Maybe you want to talk a bit more about that.
Yeah. Well, I also want to say how, that the workshop is full of giving and receiving. There's like we're doing our own process work, but there's so much overlay between everybody's stories. Elena calls it matching pictures. And, you know, where you just, so we, in Kisleg, we're going to be a large group, but we break into smaller groups to do different work. And it's just amazing how the right people come together to work on each other's stories. It's like, you know, incredibly sort of, what's the word for it? Fortuitous, but, you know, this kind of spontaneous magic that works to bring the right people together to give and receive from each other and to sort of overlap their stories. Yeah. And I have felt that there's a lot of information or intel for people around the giving as well, because, you know, like you were saying, how not everybody is raised with loving touch, and they may have some difficulty to receive that because they've got no reference point for it. It's outside of their comfort zone, even though they're craving it. Likewise, people can be inhibited around giving. And so then to be in a process where they are being invited in to support another person who they maybe really want to give to, but they have to get through their own layers of inhibition to be able to give that loving touch, or to say those beautiful words. And yeah, there's a lot of layers of self that we move through just to give. And it's such a beautiful field, isn't it? This sort of network of giving and receiving that happens in our workshops. Yeah. And then there's the oxytocin. So I think there's lots of places in Birth into Being workshops where oxytocin arises. The obvious place is when we do the limbic imprint recoding exercise, which in a nutshell is a recoding of your own entry to life. So it's a birth experience. It's not rebirthing. For people listening to the recording who have done my workshops, you would have done the limbic imprint recoding. Yeah, and the thing is that you can do that exercise many, many times, and it will be different each time. And that feeling of arriving into the world gently, safely, in love is so blissful. And there's actually, you know, as a facilitator, when you watch people coming out of that process, very often all the signs of oxytocin release are there. There might be like a flush in their face, dilated pupils, that softness that comes through, you know, a reduced need for words or expression. It's very beautiful. Very beautiful. And then, of course, when you're doing other processes that are more dynamic and active, or you're doing integration exercises like the sort of body work that we were talking about before, or many, many hands on a body. I wouldn't officially call it body work, but the process is formally called floating limbs. There's definitely lots of oxytocin release there for, again, the giver and the receiver, isn't there? What do you experience, Willow, as the giver in floating limbs, or, you know, in that integration process where we gently touch and download beautiful words to the receiver?
as the giver, I see it as kind of a meditation, because it's a really, really important part of a person's experience, is that touch. And what I notice is that the more present I am for that person, it's still kind of a holding space. And even it's really important that we apply as much awareness as possible in that phase for the person. It's a really big gift, even if it's just 5 minutes of being consciously touched. Sometimes you can feel a lot while you're giving in that way. And sometimes even after a strong process, sometimes that time for the person, for the receiver, is even more intense than the process was. So we don't really know like so much can happen to a person when they're receiving touch, whether it's one-on-one touch or multiple hands. When we really do it right. So it's a practice. We practice this skill, actually. When we really do it right, it's almost miraculous what can happen. And that's a gift to be part of, if you're giving or receiving. Sometimes it's not rational at all what can happen for a person. So they're almost, because they've been through maybe a strong experience, and the experience can deepen and can go more into it settles somehow in that time. And it's just nice. It's just beautiful to see it happen. Yeah.
I like to think of it, it's like the cells of the body are kind of opening up, from that state of deep relaxation. And, maybe the process itself was big or noisy or funny or dynamic. But then in the integration period, it's almost like a sort of, the way the cells are breathing and allowing new information in. And you see people moving through different phases as they're receiving. It's almost like waves. Yeah. And like you say, it can be more powerful than the actual process that they've done. So I hope that we're shedding some light on I sort of brought that up because it features in the film, and I know that for a lot of people it sparks their curiosity, and I hope we're shedding some light on what's going on there rather than making it actually sound more mysterious. But, the other thing that we see in birth as we know it is the spiraling dance, movement, embodiment practice. And I have also seen and experienced it for myself, that this is a very simple but profound exercise. And Elena's such a lover of dance and movement. It doesn't surprise me at all that we have a process around dance. And in fact, we use dance a lot in the workshop to activate and to kind of, give space and action to a lot of the feelings that are moving through our body. Like, what I love so much about the 10-day workshop is that we have all this space and time to do things like dance. And so sometimes as a precursor to some of the processes, and sometimes just as a little exercise in itself, we work with the spiraling movement embodiment practice. And I also experienced that as a sort of opening of the cells. We use the spiraling before the limbic imprint recoding exercise, and I've had experiences there where I felt like yeah, like I could feel the sort of malleability of the walls of my cells as they kind of, you know, open and breathe and allow things in. You feel this kind of dissolution of your being through embodied movement. It's pretty incredible. What's your experience of it, Willow?
Um, well, I'm somebody who is very prone to being quite self-controlled, actually. And I think a lot of people can understand that quality. And spiraling is a great practice to learn, to let your body move you instead of you move your body. And again, I think it's similar to gong meditation, similar to the multiple hands and the, you know, hearing things auditorily, you know, things that help us get out of this constant cognitive, like, controlled way of thinking. So spiraling, yeah, when we can let our body move instead of us move it, it's kind of a freedom. It's a beautiful freedom, and it can be really fun too. Like, so
Totally.
you know, it's interesting what your body might want to do when you're out of the way, you know, mentally. So it opens up new possibilities. And also, like, in terms of working on old structures inside of our ways of thinking, it goes along with, like, what kind our body holds the structures, the mental structures too. So it's also a practice that goes hand in hand. If you would like to get out of old structures and open up into new structures, then the body needs to come along with you in that process. And so we can practice allowing our body to try out new things, in terms of movements, not just the same old set of movements we've always done and we feel very comfortable with, but daring to try allowing our body new things, new possibilities. And that goes with, you know, if you really want that on other levels of your being, then that's why these things are offered in the workshop. That's part of why.
Yeah, so it's like a training ground for opening and disinhibition as well. Like, doing that in a room full of other people doing that can also, you know, what I love in a 10-day workshop is watching how, you know, that might be a little bit confronting at first, but by day 10, everybody's just like into it, you know, and really able to access, you know, not just like a spiraling movement, but a spiraling state of being. And Elena says when she's guiding the spiraling exercise, you know, it's not about doing, it's about being and feeling and allowing yourself. Yeah, it's so beautiful. I'm loving this conversation, Willow, because it makes me very excited for our workshop, and it makes me excited that I have somebody to nerd out about the birth into being method with, because it's so rich and there's so much profundity and so many juicy elements to this work. And it's so lovely. Like, we've been spending a lot of our time doing kind of preparation for the workshop that's about like emails and mailing lists and, you know, and we haven't really been riffing too much on the actual juice of it all. So it's really yummy.
Yeah.
I do want to keep this call kind of short because I want to make it watchable for everybody. And yeah, I guess one final question would be like, what is the vision of Birth into Being? Why does Birth into Being exist? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing this workshop? Tell me.
Well, I think every facilitator might have a slightly different answer, which would be really interesting, you know. The way I would answer what is the vision of Birth into Being. Well, I always like to think of it as we have kind of a two-path vision for the work. Part of it is to support the incoming souls, to support people who are going to be welcoming new babies onto planet Earth and would like to prepare in the most powerful way they can, a really great beginning for that new baby. So that I feel Birth into Being is offering something amazing for the whole world, because every baby who comes to the world with the kind of awareness that this work helps you to have about how sensitive we are as young ones, and the importance of how of the beginning being peaceful and blissful. This is priceless. So I think that that's how Birth into Being started originally, was supporting the new ones, the next generations. So that's a big part of the vision. Elena always said, the fastest way to change things on the planet is to support the new ones, the little ones, the next generations. And then the other stream of the work is for those of us who had difficult beginnings, whether it was at our birth or in early childhood, the formative period of our lives. For those of us, and pretty much I've never met anyone who didn't have, some difficulties along the way that were painful and maybe even mostly forgotten. But there is so much available to us in terms of recovering lost power that we lost along the way when we were small. And that's becoming more, people are becoming more aware of how important that work is. I think of it as absolutely foundational work that we need to do with ourselves, is to kind of clean up that period of our lives, to clean it up. And that's Birth into Being is working really specifically on these imprints, we call it, these early experiences, these early foundational reference points. Yeah. And why? Why do the work? Why? We, in general, I think we all would like to contribute. We're all here to contribute to making a better world for all of us and for the generations to come. And there's lots of different methods that are part of that contribution. And I'd say Birth into Being is the one that I came across that I felt most in tune with. It made sense to me on all levels. So I enjoy supporting this movement. Yeah. How about you? What would you say, Nicole, to this question?
What is the vision of Birth into Being? Like you say, about making the world a better place, but specifically in regards to consciousness. So, we know that the human race has kind of moved through a whole bunch of experiences and ways of being. And we have gotten to the point where we have so much awareness of the different ways that we can, for want of a better word, manipulate outer circumstances, but also to have input to our inner experiences. And to me, when I met the Birth into Being method, it was a progression from, in my late teens, I became a meditator. I had a lot of experiences looking at Eastern philosophies and, different ways of perceiving the world, different methods of moving beyond, the physical realm, or connecting with your higher self, connecting, with oneness. But I also really enjoy being able to activate intention about how I perceive the world, rather than, you know, like blocking it out or maybe having out of body experiences. I also really enjoy the idea of, yeah, like cleaning, cleaning the house, which I have effectively done to a large degree with the birth into being method. You know, my life is completely different now than it was sort of 13, 14 years ago when I first connected with this work. Yeah, so for me, it's one of the visions of the birth into being philosophy, method, modality, and of Elena, our teacher and mentor, is around contributing to the evolution of consciousness. So using our active intention and attention to influence not just our own life and our own experiences, but those of our species, because it's obvious that we need some help. So that's where that's the vision that I receive from this work. And when Elena was thinking about coming to Australia, and someone had made contact with a friend of mine about hosting a workshop, which we went on to do, myself and 2 other women. So we hosted Elena in 2009, I think, and she ended up coming and staying at my place. But when we were formulating the plan to host her in our small country town, because, you know, she was doing Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Byron, but we invited her to come to Bellingen and have a workshop with us. And when myself and the 2 other women were kind of formulating that plan and committing to it, we just had a little circle of like, why do we want to do this? We don't know this woman. We don't really know what she's offering. What is it that's calling us to it? And I had seen Birth as We Know It and completely aligned with everything that is represented in the film around birth and humanity, and, you know, my own visions for where we have the potential to go as a species. And my intention in that circle was to align myself with her vision. And here I am. I actually have to do the maths and I can't do it on the spot. 13 or 14 years later, still in alignment, still working closely together, loving every minute of it, and really, really happy to carry this work forward. And I'm really happy to be carrying it forward with you, Willow and Jess. And I'm excited about this workshop that we have coming up. I think it's going to be a beautiful group, and there's just such an incredibly profound level of transformation that we can offer through this body of work. So, yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Really looking forward to see, because every time we offer workshops, I think there's the next level is presented. And especially given everything we've all been through the last couple of years, I'm really, really curious what is going to be opened up this time.
Yeah. And yeah, not just what we've been going through for the last couple of years, but also what is happening now in Europe, which yeah, you know, the shock has kind of settled, but it's ongoing. And, you know, that is directly in the field of this workshop, because there's normally a lot of Eastern Europeans who come to the workshops in Kisleg. So it'll be, yeah, very interesting to see what presents in the field. And yeah. So in a nutshell, first of all, thank you so much, Willow, for all of that juicy discussion. Absolutely
My pleasure.
Gorgeous, lots of fun. And on a practical level, I just want to say about the workshop that it's a 10-day workshop. You don't have to attend for 10 full days. You can attend for a smaller amount of time. But I do have to say that once you're there, you will not want to leave. And we are happy to extend, but the hotel that we're in sometimes has other bookings. So we will happily extend your stay with us, but will the hotel be able to continue to keep you in your room? I don't know. The venue is incredibly supportive. It is all you have to do is your inner work and your work with the group. You have lots of time for integration. There is a heated pool, heated mineralized pool, so that we can float around. The ground and the sauna. Yep. I forget about that because sauna is not my thing, but heated water is everything to me. The grounds are beautiful. There's flowers. It'll be early summer, so there's like flowers. All the springtime flowers will be there. There's lots of different, you can share a room, you can be in a dormitory, you can have a single room, or you can bring a tent. You can stay off the property if you want to, and just pay the daily rate for lunches and dinners and things. It's in southern Germany, just across the border from Austria. I'm going to land in Zurich myself and make my way over by train. We have a cancellation policy. I'll put all those links in this email if you haven't seen them already, and or below if I post this on YouTube. What else is there of a practical nature that we need to say?
Well, we're really looking forward to see you in person. I mean, I think that's I'm so looking forward to the in-person part of this. So much has been online the last while, and it's so nice to do this work in person, to meet each other, especially after so much online life in the last while. So yeah, this is going to be a really beautiful experience for us.
Yeah,
on that level of our being, which needs togetherness.
Yeah, absolutely. And that benefits so much from touch. Yeah. And I did want to say, for those of you that have been following Birth into Being for a while, this workshop is not a training. It will contribute to your training if you decide to go on, but we are not training, it's experiential. And that is always a part of a training, that you need to work on your own processes and experience everything for yourself. But then towards the end, we kind of step back and look at what we've been doing more objectively. And for this workshop, we're not doing that. We're all in around, working with our own stuff, rather than looking at becoming facilitators or practitioners of the Birth into Being method. But if that is something that you're aspiring to, when the time comes that is being offered, which it may happen in 2023, we don't know, then these 10 days will contribute to your training as such. But it's so juicy that you probably want to come again. Yeah.
2023, we booked already and planned for the 16-day training.
Yeah.
So
I guess I just feel like after everything that's happened, it's so hard to say what's happening next year.
Yeah, it is. So we plan for it and we hope for the best.
Yeah. And amongst all the chaos of everything, I also want all of the people listening to this to know that, we are 100% going to be there. And it's only extreme circumstances that will change that. And also, if for any reason I can't make it from Australia, then Willow will be there. She already lives in Germany. So the workshop is going ahead, and we'd love to have you there. Mwah. Thank you so much, everybody.
Lots of love.